I just get logged on here. And this is an image from your textbook in Chapter 5. It's kind of going from, giving you information going from no or very low blood alcohol levels to the point where you might be, hopefully, in an emergency room because you're overdosing, up to 0.5 blood alcohol. Okay, now I got it on. All right. Oh, Friday, okay. I wanted to show you some information from your home page here. Did you see the announcements I put out, I think about 2 o'clock this morning? I explained to you when the online quizzes would be open. So starting April 20th, all the quizzes will be open. Chapter 1 and 2, well, syllabus and, what was it? Syllabus and something, par score. Chapter 1 and 2, Chapter 2, both of them, Chapter 3, both of them, Chapter 4, both of them, Chapter 6, both of them. And then I'm adding to give everybody to have the 14 so that everybody has 70 points from your online quizzes. The very last one will be Chapter 7, not on your exam, but it's a little quiz on the steroid comments on Chapter 7. Pretty straightforward. So that would give you all 70 of your points. So you can, if you've missed any deadlines, you can go back and fill those in starting on the 20th. If you miss this deadline, I can't help you. If you don't get this done by the time that all those open quizzes close by April 27th, 11:59, you've missed it. I've also give you instructions on how to earn 3 points extra credit, 1% of your possible total, although in your syllabus I say no extra credit, but you'll notice starting Monday, running through the 21st, I'll show you on your calendar that course evaluations will be open. If you're a freshman and you haven't done it before, you may actually get a personal email, but in general they kind of inundate students saying fill out your course evaluations, you get a chance to win a parking garage, parking sticker or something, I'm not sure. But I think if you go to ASAP and log on, starting on Monday, you'll see the link. So you can evaluate all your courses. I don't care what you say. I'm not doing it to get positive evaluations. I just want any evaluations because our dean keeps saying we don't have enough in our college, or in our department, biology, enough course evaluations. So once you do that, ASAP will automatically send me, put you on a list they send me with your name. You filled out a course evaluation, and then I'll add 3 points to your top exam score. So I may not do it immediately because ASAP will be processing all the people who are doing the evaluations. But you don't need to email me to let me know. I will get a list of every student who's done an evaluation for this section, 1033.001, and then for my other sections. Okay? And I will also, on these online quizzes, send an email out on the 20th to remind people that they're all open now. I did have a chance to post your answer keys. I'm sorry for the delay. It was a little bit late last night also when I did that. So now you've got your answer keys for the 3 test forms. And if you go to Tools and Calendar, I have filled in when the online quizzes are all open. I know you can't see it very well up here, but you've all got access to it. The online course evaluations start on the 7th, run through the 21st. All online quizzes are open starting on the 20th, and this runs all the way through. You'll see here, when you click on it, it'll expand it. They will close on the 27th at 11:59. So if you haven't missed any clicker points, You should be able to get all 30 by Monday, the 14th, not this next Monday. So you have 8 points left to earn in April, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. And then you've got extra clicker points for 2 points here, extra clicker points for 1 here, extra clicker points. I'll do a session on the 21st, on the 23rd, and on the 25th. So it's 8 extra clicker points that you can earn if you've missed them. Because I did tell you, if you forget your clicker or you miss a day, you'll get a chance to recoup that. For those of you who haven't missed any and you're going to get your 30, you don't have to respond to clicker questions anymore. The clickers are capped at 30 points. 10% of your course is class participation, so you can't go over 30. So if you keep trying to answer questions, I've got to go back then and keep resetting at the 30. I know there's an easy way to do it, but Blackboard doesn't make anything easy. So if you have any questions, check out this calendar. It should have your information for you. And I know we had a problem on Wednesday with the clicker. I think we're going to try that. Shouldn't have any problem today. I'll ask you that alcohol question. And then we'll be moving through, probably finishing alcohol, maybe like Monday. Then we'll be moving into Chapter 6, I think the most interesting chapter on hallucinogens and those kind of drugs. I didn't bring your PAR scores with me. I will bring them on Monday. I think there was a Haley Larson, couldn't find her PAR score. I found it somehow. I thought the L was a C. Don't ask me why, but it had been in the C. So I did find that. If you want to check those, I'll bring them on Monday. Okay, so we've been going through the introduced you to alcohol. Warned you to always drink ethyl alcohol, never drink methyl alcohol. Introduced you to fermentation. Basically, what you need to know for your exam is you start out with some sugar solution. So you could have sugar from fruit it's in water, sugar from any kind of plant. You could have from grain. You can get sugar from grains. If you heat the grains and break up the starch molecule that's in the grain, I don't know if you know that, but starch is glucose molecules hooked end to end. So if you heat your grains, you'll break up the starch and free the sugar for the yeast to start eating. So here's a solution of sugar in water. This is just a formula for sugar. You don't have to know it. It's glucose. Throw in some yeast. If you want to put a little arrow here, throwing it in. This arrow represents that a reaction is occurring. Yeast are eating the sugar. For every molecule of sugar they eat, they make 2 molecules of ethyl alcohol and 2 molecules of carbon dioxide. Those are the products of fermentation. We're moving on here. Lagers, what most American beer is. It's a pale gold. Wines, usually red wines from Italy, peak out at about 12%. That's about as high as you can get with unfortified wine. If you prefer to drink white German wines, they're a little less, have a little less alcohol content, maybe about 9% alcohol. So there's a little bit of sugar left that the yeast haven't consumed. They're a little sweeter, and you can stop this fermentation reaction anytime you want. It's if you drop the temperature, the yeast stop doing their thing. If you want to have some sherry or port, just remember it's fortified. They add alcohol during fermentation. Don't want to be drinking that like it's beer or wine, speaking from personal experience. Okay. Eventually, humans figured out how to make a still so that we weren't just limited to the 2 fermentation products, beer and wine, which are limited to at most 14% alcohol, usually not even that much. Take those fermentation products, put them in a still, and then you can concentrate the alcohol. So if you if you distill if you distill wine, the product is brandy. So it has a higher alcohol content. You've concentrated the flavors, concentrated the congeners. If you ferment sugarcane and then distill it, you get rum. In Russia, they ferment potatoes. There's a process that they do to the potatoes so that the starch in the potato is broken up into individual sugar molecules. Throw in the yeast, and then distill that to produce vodka. So vodka is basically the flavor of ethyl alcohol, if it's not flavored vodka. In Russia, vodka means little water. So lots of alcohol and little water. You get very drunk if you try and drink with Russians. They will keep filling your shot glass until you pass out. If you want to have gin, you can start out with some grains, roast those to break apart the starch, and then ferment it. And then when you're distilling, you filter it through juniper berries, which is the flavor of gin. So some people like gin, some people despise gin. The flavor of gin is from these juniper berries that are added at the end. So in general, after you distill something, you can get up to 40 to 50% alcohol in the bottle. Talking about Everclear, 95% alcohol. Be very careful of this. If you find a bottle that's labeled proof, you can convert that to percent. This is an older term. So a bottle labeled 80 proof is not 80% alcohol. It's 40% alcohol because 2 proof equals 1%. So if you see that, you can do the conversion. If you want to get drunk fast, drink on an empty stomach. Alcohol is the only drug that can actually get 20% of it absorbed into the blood right through the walls of the stomach. And then the rest of it, 80%, is like any drug that you take orally. It's absorbed in the small intestine. So if you're looking at when your blood alcohol levels will peak from, say, a drink or a couple of drinks, if you're on an empty stomach, the blood alcohol can peak in 30 minutes, and then your metabolism is going to catch up with it, and it'll start to fall. If you have food in your stomach, like some fat and some protein, that's going to contain the alcohol in your stomach, so you slow down its absorption, and it may be 90 minutes before you peak. So the idea is, unless you're an alcoholic, that you want to get a quick buzz, and alcoholics do this. They don't eat on purpose so they can get that alcohol in their blood fast. Remember, they're using the drug to get high. They're not using it the way most people would use it, recreationally. But if you don't want to get that quick buzz, do not eat on an empty stomach. And carbonated drinks and heating drinks, hot drinks, also get absorbed faster. So it depends on the context. You do not want to end up embarrassing yourself at your boss's Christmas party by making lewd, disinhibited remarks to other people. Doesn't go well. So now we're inside. I talked you down to the liver. This is the only drug I actually walk you through the steps of metabolism. Because it's different from other drugs, the end product of alcohol is calories because of the carbon-hydrogen bonds in the ethyl alcohol molecule. That's why you can burn alcohol in a combustion engine, because those carbon-hydrogen bonds have energy when they're broken. So we're inside a liver cell now. So the alcohol can get inside very easily get inside the liver cell. The liver has an enzyme called alcohol dehydrogenase that it uses to turn the alcohol into acetaldehyde, the first step of alcohol metabolism. Then the acetaldehyde can be converted to acetic acid, which is a fuel for any cell, and that can be out in your blood. Cells will burn it as energy, so you have some carbon dioxide, some water, and some energy from that molecule of ethyl alcohol. So your liver sees it as a weird carbohydrate, and it will always concentrate on getting rid of it first. And if you're eating while you're drinking, all those calories from food are going to be sort of stored as fat until you get rid of the alcohol, and then you can start working on that food. So people who drink and eat can have some weight gain there, and if they do it a lot, we'll talk about a condition called fatty liver that can occur. For your final, this is the only enzyme you need to know all semester. It's that one that it converts alcohol to acetaldehyde, alcohol dehydrogenase. Takes a hydrogen off of that molecule, dehydrogenase. So this is one that the liver cells, if you drink every day, they start making a lot of it. Your body, again, will always try and compensate for what you're doing in terms of how much drug is in your system. So I talked about dispositional tolerance. Your liver learns to dispose of it faster. Your receptors can change, all those kind of things. So this particular enzyme also is involved with other drug metabolism too. So if you have a lot of this, because you're tolerant to alcohol, you may find that you're also metabolizing other drugs faster, like aspirin and some other things. So that can have an effect on blood levels of other drugs. You have to know what this drug antabuse is. This is a brand name. I'm just giving you that. If it can help you remember, antabuse, it's to help people who don't want to abuse alcohol anymore. You take it in the morning, and if you don't have any alcohol, you don't even know you have it. My problem with antabuse is that Susan Reed, the district attorney, now is making people take it who have no intention of stopping drinking, but they've been arrested and they're waiting for trial for drunk driving. So I've seen where these people are mouth open, put in a pill, take a sip of water, they look under your tongue, open your mouth, and then they're on their way. The problem is these people are not people who are really wanting to stop drinking. So they end up drinking while they're on antabuse. And what antabuse does is that it blocks the metabolism right here in the liver. So you get a buildup of acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde can make you sick, vomiting. You can get allergic reactions, red eyes, flushed face. Depends on different people. Some people it's like a, what would you call it, hay fever type effect. There have been people who have actually ruptured their esophagus from violent vomiting doing this. They know that they shouldn't drink, but remember you are dealing with addicts, and they are not always going to take the good advice. Antabuse is excellent if you want to stop drinking. So when I stopped drinking, I did antabuse for about 6 months. I just didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to be tempted by a friend saying, oh, come on, have a drink. What are you, too good for us now? I could just say, I can't, I'm on medication. And it just helped because I wanted to stop drinking. I really drank a lot in my 30s and 40s. I think I told you there's probably some notorious stories out there about Dr. Armstrong's partying back then. You guys are too young, but I could drink people under the table. I invited bands from bars to my house. There were nights when on Saturday nights I had a live band in my living room, so we could keep going until 6 a.m. And that, after a while, was just crazy. Okay, that's abuse in terms of, first of all, my expense, because I was always buying rounds. I always used to get sick when I saw my credit card bills. I had people staying at my house that were rather scruffy characters that threw up on my rugs, urinated in my floors, all the bad things that happen when people are really drunk. I myself, on waking up with horrible hangovers and just thinking, you know what, I don't want to be here 20 years from now. I don't want to be sitting on a bar stool doing this kind of abuse, so I just stopped. So it works well, but I don't know about giving it to people who don't want to stop drinking. All right, so you understand what you need to know. The steps for metabolism, the first enzyme, and then that drug, antabuse. All right, blood alcohol level, you should know that BAC, of course, refers to that. That is looking at percent alcohol in 100 mils of your blood. Now, you don't need 100 mils. Just need a fraction of that. Or you can use a breathalyzer. So it's not in the notes, but I want you to know how a breathalyzer works. When you have alcohol in your blood, every time your blood passes through the capillaries coating your air sacs, and you know this happens once a minute, blood makes a full circuit, your body's warm enough to actually vaporize some of that alcohol that's in the capillaries surrounding the air sacs. So those capillaries, what they're mainly doing is pulling oxygen in from the air, releasing carbon dioxide. They will also release some alcohol vapor into the air sacs that's proportional to what's in your blood. So your warmth of your body actually is allowing that alcohol vapor to come out when you exhale. The alcohol is not coming from your mouth or anything like that. Breath mints are not going to help. So when they ask you to blow, they're going to then measure the percent ethanol vapor in your exhalation and then correlate that back to what your BAC is. So that's how a breathalyzer works. So you should recognize that in San Antonio, there were many people who would refuse a breathalyzer when they were stopped. And so if you went to trial, the evidence was based on the police officer, and some of them didn't even have the cameras back then. Now, almost every time you're stopped, and it's a good thing too. I want police to have cameras, so they aren't doing something like beating somebody up and saying, it didn't happen. Now, in fact, they have cameras now on some of their shoulders. I think that's a good idea too. Weird things happen late at night. So anyway, they can look at you with the camera and then present their evidence and say that you were impaired. And if you won, it made it easier for you to win your trial. If you lost, the penalties were doubled, but people took that chance. Now you cannot refuse a breathalyzer test. And if you do, there are little mobile units that will come around and do it for you. And so also, they will do a blood draw if you're in an accident that injured somebody. So they have little mobile units now. They can be there very quickly. They want to draw your blood quickly because if you're an alcoholic, your liver is burning alcohol pretty fast. So within 2 or 3 hours, you might get below the level that you peaked out at. So they want to get an image of where you were at when this accident occurred. So there's no refusal, and so you just need to be careful about that and recognize it. Also recognize when you're in a police car, you are constantly on camera. I've seen a video where a kid's sitting in the back seat, not realizing there's a camera on the officer's rearview mirror. So he's sitting there going, man, I'm drunk. You know, don't, you know, so obviously he didn't do a breathalyzer, but he just admitted that he was drunk, he was intoxicated. So you're always on camera whenever you're either in a police car or in jail or anywhere like that. People have done some foolish things. So there's a whole table in your book if you want to see and estimate what your blood alcohol would be. It has to do with your tolerance, has to do with how much, did you have food with your drink, it has to do with your body size, and it also has to do with your body composition. Women, we have a higher fat to muscle ratio than men, and that actually allows us to have a higher blood alcohol than men, even if we weigh the same and we do the same drinking at the same time. Because there's actually water in muscle, the mass of it, that can help dilute the men's alcohol a little bit. So our blood alcohol peaks higher. So that's a warning. There seems to be a trend now for girls in college to say this kind of thing. I can drink like a guy and try and match guys shot for shot. You will have a higher BAC, which can be a problem. So in general, we have that extra fat because evolutionarily, if we were pregnant, that fat could get us through a famine if it was needed. So we're always going to have that kind of higher ratio. Men also have a little bit of this enzyme in their stomach, so they can also start getting rid of it really fast. So the only example you need to know, if you're a 175-pound male, 5 drinks in 2 hours, can't drive. You're over the limit. Okay? You may not feel at all intoxicated. When you're in a bar or in certain situations, people don't feel the intoxication. And in the United States, and particularly in Texas, our cars are our horses in some ways. And to take somebody's keys away is the equivalent of taking their horse away from them, it seems. So that person will be very angry with you. But if they were to be out on the road and get into an unfamiliar situation, they could have big problems, and it's not worth it. Okay. What about these people that get head-on freeway accidents? You must think to yourself, how can you get on the wrong way? Well, if you look at those, often they are people that may have never been caught before, but drive frequently when drunk, or it could be their first time. But it happens when people are out of their comfort zone. So when I was drinking, I always did local bars. I was in a comfort zone. I know stop sign left, stop sign, and I'm home. Okay? People get into accidents when somebody says, oh, let's go to that new bar on 281. Let's go to that one downtown. Let's go to that one somewhere outside of where you are. So they go. They're frequent drinkers, so they're pretty intoxicated. They've never been around here before. All they're looking for is 281, 281, 281. Oh, there's 281. And they get on 281, and they get on an exit ramp, okay? So you don't want to be in that situation if you're driving in unfamiliar territory. UTSA student 4 years ago, driving his father's big 350. Is that the biggest Ford truck with the dually wheels? 350? Okay, he gets on 1604 the wrong way at Houseman. 5 a.m., he woke up from a party, and he was still intoxicated. I wanted to drive home real quick. So he gets on the wrong way. He wasn't that familiar with getting on 1604 there. It's a family in a small, compact car, right kind of where 1604 between UTSA Boulevard and Babcock, demolishes their car. Mother killed, father seriously injured. Of the 3 kids, 1 is killed, 1's paralyzed, and 1 was injured. So this young man was sitting on the curb. Obviously, he's in that big truck. He didn't have any injuries, holding his head. Someone walked up to him, and he's like, what happened? Of course, he had immediate blood draw, and he is now multiple vehicular manslaughter with intoxication. Because he destroyed this family. I mean, first time he didn't have anything on his record, but you don't want to put yourself in that situation. And he was driving his father's truck, so his family now has the right to sue in civil court to get some compensation for the fact that they have kids now that are going to require lifelong medical care. So I know it doesn't make any sense to you right now, and you won't remember this 5 minutes when you walk out of here. But if in any way there's that moment when you say, geez, maybe I won't, you never know, okay? It can change your life, because your life can change in an instant. All right, so that's the legal limit there. Even if you're not at that limit, if the officer feels you're impaired, he has the right to take you downtown, feel that you shouldn't be driving. So there may be people now that may be just high on marijuana, or they're high on benzodiazepines, or they're high on Xanax and Vicodin. They're not going to blow and not have a .08, but if you're impaired and you can't pass a field sobriety test, he can take you downtown. So remember, it's not just based on that blood alcohol. It's how impaired you seem. All right, so if we look here, what I did in alcohol, it's a pretty compact set of notes. So I just talk about what happens at low doses, what happens at, low dose is fine. This is where most people who aren't alcoholics tend to stay. High dose episode, and then we go to frequent high dose, probably an alcoholic, and then long-term frequent high dose, probably an older alcoholic. So we're stepping up through the effects here. So that low dose, no problem. You go out to dinner, you have a glass of wine, or you have a cocktail. The cocktail will stimulate your gastric juices to prepare you for a meal. That's why people do cocktails. Alcohol causes a dilation or expansion of blood vessels in the skin. So you get that nice warm glow, you feel warm, and you've got a nice glow to your skin. If you're really a fair blonde and you haven't drank much, you can actually get almost a painful blush from that dilation of blood vessels in mainly in your head and neck. You get very red in the cheeks. But in general, it's kind of a pleasant feeling. Relaxation and disinhibition. Sounds just like a Valium or Xanax or any benzodiazepine. And this is working through the GABA receptors also. So you need to know that that alcohol also interacts with GABA receptors and enhances their responses. So that the signal the target cell gets is relax, a little bit stronger inhibition, a little bit stronger relaxation. The difference is that alcohol doesn't target just the GABA cells for anxiety. It also has a pretty strong effect on the GABA neurons, GABA receptors that are in your cerebellum, which controls where your body is in space. I showed you a picture early in the semester of a Purkinje cell. Those beautiful dendrites integrates visual, vestibular, every joint and tendon. It knows where you are. So if they're a little bit over-inhibited from alcohol, that's why you can't stand on one foot or touch your nose with your eyes closed. You can't walk heel to toe. That's what the officer's doing. He may not know it, but some of them have had my class. I was funny having a police officer when somebody totaled my car on 1604, and the officer that helped, he looked at me and goes, "Are you the Dr. Armstrong at UTSA?" I said, "Yeah, I had your class." He's grabbed her away. Okay, that's cool. Now can you help my mom here? No, we weren't seriously hurt. He just slammed in the back of my car. So the idea is he's testing how alcohol is affecting your GABA activity in your cerebellum. So that's what he's looking for with the balance. So you want to keep your dose low, and then you mainly get kind of a little bit of the anti-anxiety as if it were a mild benzodiazepine. That's the relaxation. So that's nice on a date. You feel relaxed. You're not as self-conscious. That has to do with this disinhibition too. Disinhibition, think of inhibition first. And I talked about that top executive part of your brain in the cortex. It's your forebrain right behind your forehead. It is the most adult part of your brain, if you want to think about it. It's the one that controls your attention span. It's the one that gives you judgment, like, no, don't do that. This could happen. It thinks about what could happen in the future and the consequences of your behavior right now. So with alcohol, that's sort of quieted down. So that little adult in your head isn't telling you, think about that, think about this. But if you're really self-conscious and very uptight person, that executive part of the brain actually is overdoing it. Because it's like, oh, don't do that. People will laugh. They'll think you're crazy. You look stupid. Oh, my outfit doesn't look right. So some people have a lot of inhibition. So that little bit of alcohol quiets that voice in the head, and that's called disinhibition. So you relax. Okay, people start to flirt a little bit. Maybe a guy asks a girl to dance, where if he didn't have a drink, he'd be too nervous to do it. You know, you're not, and that's nice. I mean, if everybody's on the same page, this can be a very nice evening. You can have increased sexual desire, because that's another thing that the executive part of the brain does. Is it appropriate to have sexual desire now? And if you're on a date, sure, okay? So the problem is, for young women and young men, is this increased sexual desire and the disinhibition can mean two different things. So the young woman is smiling at the guy, thinking, God, he's cute. I hope he asks my phone number. Maybe we'll go out again. The guy's looking at the girl going, oh, she's smiling at me. I'm going to nail her tonight, boy. You know? So he's thinking sex, and she's thinking, I wonder if I'll ask for my phone number. You know? So you get to the end of the date, and that can lead to some uncomfortable situations where the guy's like, what are you talking about? You've been flirting with me all night. You know, he's thinking one thing, and she's like, no, I didn't, you know, da, da, da. So that can be, you know, a problem. It can lead to things, if you're drunk enough, the disinhibition can lead people to do stupid things, like maybe force themselves on someone, or for a woman to have sex when she doesn't really want to. And this can lead to a bad problem with women. I feel so bad for them. I know women my age or younger, in their 40s, they can't have sex unless they're intoxicated with alcohol. They have this thing in their head that I'm a bad girl if I have sex, and it's like, oh. Yes, that's your mom calling right now, saying, what are you talking about sex for? I heard that, sex, what sex? What is she saying? No, don't do it, son. Okay, well, actually that wouldn't happen. For sons, guys usually get, hey, sow some wild oats. Come on, you know, score a few. Women get, oh my goodness, you are now going to be labeled a bad girl. And on top of that, oh my God, what if you get pregnant? I mean, that's like a big responsibility for a young woman. So now it's like, this is going through her head. Talk about killing a sex buzz, is having those thoughts going through your head. So it's terrible that women started this pattern of using alcohol to relax, to have sex, and then they kind of get trapped in it. Because, you know, that's not really the way you can ultimately enjoy sex. I mean, if I'm on a date, I'm an older woman with one of my lovers, it's fun to have wine, knowing that we're going to go to bed later on and have a nice night. But for two people on a first date, you have to remember that can lead to miscommunications. I'm just throwing that out there. All right, so this is no problem. But what if you continue drinking? You don't keep to the low dose. Now you go somewhere else and more drinks occur. Now you're starting to see the cerebellum more affected, little loss of coordination. Some people have a distinctive change when they get drunk. They start to slur. And that's related to coordination. Not everyone does it, but if you do it, you'll do it every time you get intoxicated. At this point, disinhibition turns into loss of emotional control. If you're going to be happy, you're laughing hysterically. If you're going to be sad, you're crying, I'm a bad person, I should be home. You know, so if this is now the executive center, it's no longer really paying attention. At this state, when people are drinking, they're in the now. So you have to recognize at this state what you're thinking about. You're not thinking about tomorrow. You're not thinking about yesterday. You're not thinking about work. It's what's in front of you right now, and you're just letting your emotions go. So this can unmask some things that you may not want to have people see. If you are a misogynist, you really hate women, or you're a racist and you really hate certain people because of their ethnicity or their skin color, or in general, you're just an aggressive son of a bee, and so when you're drunk, that comes out, you just want to punch somebody. So you'll see that. And if that comes out, you should recognize it will happen every time that person gets into this total disinhibited state. So you probably know some people. If you have a party big enough, 100, usually you can pick out that guy's going to be fighting by 1:30 a.m. You just know that a certain amount of alcohol, that what they normally keep controlled is now disinhibited, and it comes out. So just recognize you can't really reason with somebody that's there, and you may want to avoid people that you know this is going to happen. I had a roommate in college who came on to men like crazy when she got drunk, and I could see it on her face. So here I am at a bar, and she's climbing onto guys' laps, unbuttoning their shirts, and I know that the next day this is what she wants to do. And one time it was a truck driver, nice guy, but she was going to go in the cab with him. I'm like, no, try to intervene. I'm like, you don't understand. She is was here with me. She needs to get back to the campus tonight. We were in a bar off campus. So it was like, she never remembered what had happened. So thankfully, Carol stopped drinking. But I just predicted it, and I'm like, oh no. Because then she would, next day she would be, why didn't you stop me, da da da. What can you do, okay? So I just want to tell you that'll happen over and over. So whatever she had, kept under control when she was sober, came out when she was intoxicated. And some guys would say, oh great, what's her phone number, I'll get her drunk. But it was not, wasn't gonna, I shouldn't even talk about that, but it was unfortunate. She was one of those women that could not really have normal sexual feelings unless she was drunk. And then they weren't normal. Okay, the problem is, at this point, all that sexual flirting, if the blood alcohol is high enough, you can't have an orgasm. Women can't have an orgasm, men can't have an orgasm, because the physiological reflexes that are required to achieve an orgasm are sedated. So that's not any good. That can lead to an hour later, people going, okay, we give up, This isn't going to happen. Now for guys, for older men, it can also mean you can't sustain an erection, because the blood flow of the penis and the nerves that control that are key to maintain an erection. It's basically plumbing. Blood goes in, can't come out, you're fine. If that doesn't happen, the erection goes away. So this is where things can happen when people are really drunk. So everything's a disaster for everybody. All right, now what if you just keep drinking and you're not that tolerant and you OD on alcohol? What can happen is you suddenly start violently vomiting. It's called the dry heaves. When your blood alcohol rises that quickly and you're not really experienced with it, there's reflexes in your brainstem that say, you've been poisoned. Get rid of it. Throw it up. Because it never has seen alcohol rising so fast and thinks it's a poison. So this is very unpleasant. You can be vomiting and you don't even have anything left in your stomach. It's called emesis. It's a vomit reflex. It just keeps happening. Not very fun. A young guy last semester, his first date with a woman, this happened. He's holding her hair and she's crying, take me to the hospital. He's like, oh my God, Turns out she had shots. She never had shots before. She had the dry heaves and just panicked. Now, you could pass out. Now, when you pass out from alcohol, you're not asleep. You're unconscious. You don't want to let somebody on their back who's unconscious. They still might try and get rid of that poison, vomit, aspirate the vomit, and die that way. So always lay them on their side or their back. If the blood alcohol is high enough, they go into a coma. Typical, stop breathing, blood pressure drops, heart rate drops. So for a lot of people, the blood alcohol is 0.4. For most people, you're on the threshold of alcohol poisoning. You may want to think about having someone take you to the hospital. A lot of times they'll put you on diuretics to flush fluid out with the alcohol come out in your urine to help you. If you're not breathing, they can respirate you and all that. People who are very tolerant, sometimes they get up to like 0.3 and they're still driving when most of us would be unconscious. So that's kind of scary. All right, you don't OD on alcohol, but you just overdo it. Next day you have a hangover. I've not talked about hangovers for these other drugs before. And you can have a hangover from staying up all night on stimulants. You're tired. We'll talk about ecstasy. People have a little bit of slurred thinking, maybe a little depression the next day. But alcohol is specific because of its toxicity. There is no other drug you can use as a disinfectant, no other drug you can burn in an engine or set it on fire. This is toxicity. One of the things is a headache, a pounding headache, because as you're laying down, there's fluid shifts due to the alcohol into your head and neck. So you're all puffy in the morning, all that extra fluid. It also dilates blood vessels in the head, and it's pressing against your skull and your soft tissue there. You may be nausea, not like this nausea, but queasy from irritating your stomach. You're tired. You may not get up till 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but it wasn't sleep. It was unconsciousness. You're incredibly thirsty because as your body burns alcohol, it uses up about a molecule of water for every alcohol molecule it burns. So you actually have a cellular water debt. You need water. And you may have urinated more than normal. You can't concentrate. Your neurotransmitter systems are kind of in flux, and some people get depressed. There's no way to avoid this. The severity of it is related to how high your blood alcohol peaked. So you start doing shots, that can lead to this. If it doesn't get very high, less a problem with a hangover. And you just have to give yourself time to recover. There's no magic way to cure that. All right. Finish this frequent high dose, and then we'll talk about the, I'll pull your question up for you. Okay, Now you've got someone who is not drinking recreationally. And as I mentioned, you may not know a heroin addict or a coke addict, but most of you probably know an alcoholic, an alcohol addict. So their drinking is different. They may not admit it, but an addict, what does it mean? They've lost their off switch. So once they start drinking, that circuit, that reward circuit just keeps saying, do it, do it. So they're going to binge. Okay? They can't go out and just have a couple beers. They may even promise their family, and they mean it. I'm just going to go out for a couple beers. I'll be back tonight because I know we got to do that thing in the morning. They're not going to come back. Okay? They may not be willing to admit it. So if you had a parent who was an alcoholic, it's very problematic for children because they may say things and really promise things that they mean, but they're not going to do it because in reality the drug is going to take control. So that's very disappointing. So about 10 to 12% of people in the United States who drink will go on to become an addict. So that's about the same for most drugs. So remember, it's those who drink. If you don't drink, you're kind of out of the loop. So that means not everybody's going to. Some people are heavy social drinkers and never become an addict. That is a mystery that people work on. You're going to start experiencing blackouts. During a blackout, you're not passed out, you're doing stuff. People, serious alcoholics with blackouts, wake up in a hotel room, call the front desk and say, what city am I in? Turns out they're in Las Vegas, because at 4 a.m., suddenly they thought, let's go to Vegas. So they go to the airport, they get on a plane, they buy a ticket. They may be reeking of alcohol, but hey, they're going to Vegas. They gamble until 7 in the morning, crash in their hotel room, wake up, and they were blacked out the whole time. They have no memory. Maybe the last thing they remember is 8 p.m. the evening before when they started out. So what happens in a blackout, the hippocampus that keeps a tape recording of what you do gets turned off. So you don't remember. Now at this point, you can drink a lot, you're tolerant, you're maybe tissue dependent, and you're going to have problems with withdrawal. So withdrawal is serious with alcohol because you can go from dead blackout drunk to zero alcohol in 12 hours because you're burning it. And that's very fast, so alcoholics will wake up already starting to go into withdrawal. They're shaky, they're sweating, they're trembling, they need a drink. So that's why they ask you, do you drink in the morning? That's a key. If you do a drug in the morning, it means you're probably tissue dependent. All right. Everybody get ready to answer their question here. I'll do this. This is a question I'd asked you, but it failed on Wednesday, so. I think this was a class that did fail, I think, yeah. Okay. Okay, just checking for other frequencies. All right, so votes are jumping in there. So I'm asking you, what are the products of fermentation? What do you make when you ferment? I just told you about it. So this is, did you listen? Do you remember? Don't miss it on the final. It's going to be there. Are you making yeast and sugar? Products means you're making it. Are you making ethyl alcohol and sugar? Are you making carbon dioxide and sugar? Or are you making ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide? So choose your answers. I'll show you the correct one. I will say that this again will be on your final. I will bring par scores on Monday if you didn't get a chance to get those. Finish your Chapter 5 quizzes. They're due at 11:59 Sunday. All right, 200 votes, 201. We're sitting at 211. 211. Anyone not voted? Oh, there we go, 212. Gotcha. I'll shut it down in about a minute and a half. Going once, 212. Going twice, 212. Gone, sold to the man in the blue UTSA t-shirt. All right. All right, so the answer is D. You don't make yeast and sugar. That's what you kind of start with. You have a sugar solution, you put in the yeast. Ethyl alcohol you make, but you're not making sugar. That's what you start with. You make carbon dioxide, but you don't make sugar during your fermentation. That's what you start with.